Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
We were just talking about zits. Because it's something they don't tell you is that when you're a middle-aged woman, you get them.
Yes, you get wrinkles and zits at the same time.
Yeah.
It's so much fun. And your skin dries out even more.
Yes, and I already had normal to dry skin. As a teenager, I had normal to dry skin, which, by the way, meant I was very blessed. I admit it. And then I had to go on testosterone because I didn't make my own, it turned out. And then then I started getting some acne then, right? Because that's new. Your body's like, oh, shit. We have oil now? And then it's like, here's a zit for your troubles.
I'm convinced that the moisturizer that is specially formulated for women over 40, we'll say, I'll be kind, for women over 40.
Wait, who's that being kind to?
Moi. I am convinced it has hair growth formula in it. Because you slather this stuff on because you're trying to get rid of all the fine... Or you're not trying to get rid of, you're trying to lessen the fine lines and wrinkles. And perhaps you get a few less crow's feet around your eyes, and then you have a 3-foot fucking piece of barbed wire growing out of your chin.
Yeah, you know, I have one of those. You have the random
one.
No, and but I have one that's just like thick.
It's like a
and somehow I swear it grows overnight.
Yep,
a foot long because I will tweeze and think I got everything. Then I'm like, you have a curl. How did I miss you?
I had a friend who she said she was watching a movie. She was in a movie theater. And she felt a hair on her lip. So she brushed it. Because she thought, a hair or an eyelash had fallen. And it was still there. And it was a hair growing above her lip that was over her lip. And it's like it grew in the theater. It just, bing!
It's like a horror movie where you've been exposed to radiology, but it's just actually middle age. Radiation, not radiology.
Hair grows like hell where it shouldn't, and where you wish you had some, it all falls out.
Right? They're just like, what is that? Where are you? What's happening? It's just a weird, freaky mystery.
I wish that our listeners could see the gestures you were making to go along with what is going on.
It's terrible.
And I have heard so many people we are still at the writers' conference because we usually do a couple at once. I have heard so many people discuss talking with their hands, and they all attribute it to a different nationality. And I'm like, you're just a fucking expressive.
Right? I'm Italian, so I usually, that's what I hear a lot, right? Yep. Or I'm Sicilian. It'll go both ways. Okay, well. I'm American.
But before you came in, when I went out to dinner with the strangers, the waitress, we had a really good waitress. She was upbeat and informative and attentive enough. But I don't know how it came up. She said, I want to say her name on her name tag was Lauren. And I don't even know how it came up, because certainly nobody said, so what nationality are you, Chica? But she was like, she laughed and she goes, I know, I have the whitest name on the planet. And she goes, but you know what I am? And she lists like 10 nationalities. She's like, I'm Swiss, I'm German, I'm Native American. But it was like 10 things that you would never put together. It just was I'm Egyptian and Syrian and Icelandic, Swiss, and Mexican.
I just learned, so Blackish. Did you ever watch Blackish?
I saw it. I didn't watch it regularly.
The daughter on that, there were 2 young women who came out in shows at the kind of around the same time. Because the other one was in, not the Rookie, the other writing one with Nathan Fillion, where he's a writer and he goes on the ride-alongs.
I never saw that, but I know the one you mean.
The girl who played his daughter,
okay.
and the two girls that I find just stunning between the two of them. The girl on his show, very pale, red hair. I just thought she was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And then you have the oldest daughter on Blackish, even though my favorite character was the younger daughter, because I swear to you, she's a sociopath. But anyway, fantastic. She's like the Wednesday of the family, okay? But the older daughter, who then got her own spinoff, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but it's her going to college.
Oh, okay.
Stunning. Well, I just found out that she is part African American, right? Uh-huh. She's also part Iranian. I was like, like the two of those together. She's exquisitely lovely. But yeah, I just read that in some random article recently for some reason. I think I got led to it because there was an article about the things that people who are mixed race have to put up with can be absolutely absurd.
I have seen, there's a guy who does I think it's on TikTok. He does a series because I think he might even be a ginger. I mean, he could be related to me. But half of his family is Mexican.
Oh, so he gets shit for it, doesn't he?
Yes. And he's like, being at my white family's house on Easter, being at my, abuela's house on Easter.
Yeah.
And and I'm like, if somebody tells me I'm fill in the blank, I'm like, okay, I just believe them. I'm not going to argue with anybody about it.
Yeah. Until they prove otherwise. I know because, so there's 5 of us siblings, right? Mm-hmm. We are part Native, we are part Cherokee, and very distantly Potawatomi, and some other things. But those are the ones that really actually mattered, was the Cherokee. And the only 2 of us are brunettes. The oldest 2 of us are the only 2 who have dark hair. The rest
have... Is it your sister, a brunette?
She's got dark blonde. It's gotten darker as she's gotten older.
Okay.
But, so the younger 3 were all blonde. Growing
your
up.
Your middle brother is blonde. Doesn't
dark
look
blonde.
Like any of you.
No. He and my sister actually have very similar face shapes and stuff like that if you look at them. And then the other 3 of us have similar.
Except she looks like Brandon.
We all look alike at different times. I make different faces.
Yeah.
But the youngest brother is very blonde. He ended up being the blondest. He didn't get the dirty blonde. He still has the blue eyes, and he has paler skin. And we have always given him a hard time growing up.
Of course.
And called him the albino and stuff. And I realized how upset I get when somebody questions, mm-hmm. right? Or says, you don't look Native American to me. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Am I not wearing a headdress? Fuck you. And so then I was like, oh, well, I'm not making fun of him ever again. That's terrible. But
have you had people ask you, I can't remember how it's phrased, it's what your blood
quantum is? Oh,
yes.
Yeah. They like to do that as a challenge thing. And I'm like, you understand that's a government thing, right? Like a U.S. government thing, blood quantum.
I mean, I understand it's very insulting, but I'm like, do people actually?
They do.
Oh, fuck that.
And that is none of anybody's fucking business ever.
Right?
And not once have I met another person who was Native who asked what the blood quantum was. Just on the record. That's not a thing we do. That's a thing white people do to us when they're trying to belittle us, basically. Make us, you're not, oh yeah, what's your blood quantum? Oh. My blood quantum is go fuck yourself.
It's quantum of solace.
That's right. Now go and take your solace over there before I
quantum it for you.
I know where to take this threat. No,
you don't need to verbalize. You can just glare and people will
indeed
quake in fear.
Indeed. Or as we learned today, just say Jesus and a whole fight will start from it. I'm not going to go into those details. I did get into a fight with someone today at the conference, and I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure I saw a lanyard. It was outside the conference, but I think I saw a lanyard on her. So
I don't remember. All I heard was this clack, 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 clack. And I'm like, your fucking shoes don't fit, bitch.
All right, hyper-aggressive woman with whatever the female... We've been discussing what the female version of the Napoleon syndrome is.
If there is a female equivalent. Because I maintain that societally, petite, short women aren't discriminated against the way petite, short men are.
And probably taller women face more, like tall women, not just like me,
or
who's a little above average.
There's a woman I follow on TikTok who's very tall. She's like 6'4" and broad-shouldered. And people will say to her, you're a man. And she's like, she's always threatening to lift her shirt up. But then you'll see like her mom will walk through the background and she'll be like, "Hi, Mom." And I mean, she's not like 18 or something. She's,
Yeah.
But it's hilarious to me because
somebody did that about Nicole Kidman. It was funny. I was reading. I click on the dumbest things. I do. I clicked on this whole article and it was misunderstandings of women's plumbing and stuff, basically, right?
Oh, God, that would be hilarious.
Yes, it was. There's so much, and there's ones that I've even heard before, but one of them, this guy did a whole post about Nicole Kidman, and it was a picture of her in some movie where she's like in a white tank top and white underwear, and she's kind of bent over on the floor in almost a fetal position, I guess would be the best way to describe it. And he said, you notice how her back isn't bowed? A real woman, her back is bowed because she has to be able to bear the weight of her belly when she gets pregnant. And so women have this natural curvature and bowing in their back that men don't have. And I'm like, what? And he's like, clearly Nicole Kidman is a man. And I'm all, of all the women she accused of being a man, you looked at Nicole Kidman and felt she was masculine?
Ethereal, fairy-like little tiny woman. I mean, she's tall, but she's fine boned.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It was just one of, so many. I could sit here and list them, but no, you just click on stupid-ass articles like I do, and you'll find it.
And I do occasionally click on stupid-ass articles.
Yeah, it was like one specific page that keeps popping up that I don't even follow, but because I've clicked on it, the algorithms are all, you like it, and then they always draw me in, man. They draw me.
I try not to click on them on Facebook because then you get just an avalanche of them, but I'd
rather this than politics, so I'm okay, but still, doesn't mean I'm not going to feel stupid when they're like,
yay, look what I'm looking at.
What am I doing? All right, do you want to start?
I will start. I have more mayhem.
Yay.
Although there is a little death, but it's mostly mayhem and porn.
I have a mystery.
No, I'm straight up mayhem and porn.
We are in Vegas after all. Mine is also very Vegas themed.
Okay, so that is actually why I picked this. Not because it's not set in Vegas. It has absolutely nothing to do with Vegas. But it just has that Vegas feel to it. So the man's name is Nacho Vidal, and I've dubbed him the Master of Mayhem.
Such a weird. I think of Vidal Sassoon, right? And then Nacho. It doesn't. What?
Yeah. Ooh la la, Sasson.
I went to elementary school and then 6th grade in Maryland, and I guess there was some Vidal Sassoon school near there or something. Ooh. And so they came to I was in a class and it was just called Interdependent Studies, and that just gave her license to show us whatever the fuck she wanted, because one day our entire period was spent watching a video of them euthanizing animals. And why? I'm not kidding. And also people who threw animals out of their cars.
Well, they should be run over.
This was 6th grade.
They should have their spleens forcibly removed from their body without anesthesia.
But anyway, somebody coming from the Vidal Sassoon school. And a couple people got like their hair washed and styled in the class. And I don't understand this class at all. Looking back, I've tried to figure out what this class even was. And it was different every period. And I swear it was called Interdependent Studies or something.
I have no idea.
And the teacher was Mrs. Kleinknecht Hall. Hyphenated.
Gesundheit.
Because I also had a different teacher, Mrs. Hall.
Ah.
And she was a tiny little woman. And she had a coffee pot in her classroom, which wasn't standard. I don't know. And so you knew you were going into history and it was going to smell like coffee. It's not a bad scent.
No.
But, yeah, she was just this little tiny woman with big hair. And coffee.
I do not even like the taste of coffee, but I do like the smell of fresh ground coffee and brewing coffee.
She drank literally the whole time through every class. She must have downed so much coffee in a day.
That woman never blinked, did she?
Probably not.
Actually, I bet if you had looked, her feet were hovering a quarter of an inch off the floor.
She sure as shit never sat down.
Okay. So, back to, it's not about the mysteries or the monsters. Sometimes it's about chaotic energy going forth into the world.
Oh, shit. We bring that on our own.
Yeah, well. So, Nacho Vidal was born, and maybe some of you know his name. Maybe some of you are already familiar with him. He was born Ignacio Horta Gonzalez at the end of December in 1973. So for anyone who is unaware, Nacho is a common nickname for Ignacio.
Oh, okay.
His family lived in Barcelona, Spain, although they moved to... I'm like, wait, that sentence is grammatically incorrect. Oh, he moved to Valencia with his family when he was young. And so I say apologies in advance for pronunciations I'm going to butcher.
Here we go.
Yeah. So his family was actually from the Valencia area. So they moved back there at some point. So anyway, in the 1987 stock market crash, which I misspelled. I misspelled the word
Just the one you did like this morning?
Yes. Anyway, Nacho's family lost all of their money. So at 14, he quit school to help his family to earn money. So among other jobs, he was in a punk band and he was a boxer. So, not faulting him because he was trying to earn money and help out, but neither of those are particularly easy ways to make money when you're starting out.
Yeah, no.
Like a beginner
you
boxer.
Get your ass beat, and then you gotta go and
a punk
perform
band.
for a bunch of assholes who maybe throw cans at you.
Exactly.
And probably get shorted because a lot of those bands don't actually, like the place that books you screws you over.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but bigger things, haha, pun intended, were coming. At the age of 21, Nacho started doing live sex shows in Barcelona with his girlfriend, Sarah Bernat, who was 19. And I'm like, I've never thought I need a quick buck.
How about I do a sex show?
How about I go have sex in front of strangers?
In front of some Spaniards.
Through this work, he met Jose Maria Ponce, who was the director of the Barcelona International Erotic Film Festival, which, by the way, is the oldest adult film festival in Europe.
Oh.
Jose introduced him to the world of erotic films or pornographic films, depending on how you want to call it. Nacho soon became a protege of Rocco Siffredi, who was an Italian actor, director, and producer of porn films, who eventually brought him to Hollywood 4 years later in 1998. It turns out, this blew my mind. Nacho has starred in over 1,500. It said 1,500 movies. I believe it actually meant 1,500 sex scenes.
Okay.
So, let me math that
I'm
for
tired.
you. If he boinked once per scene and made one movie every day, it would take a little over 4 years to achieve that many happy endings.
Thank you for your mathing skills.
You're welcome. Because I'm just like, 1,500 is such a big number. But I was like, how many years would it take you to...
production value is pretty low on these pornos, so they can do an awful lot.
Right. Nacho also produced and or directed many more movies than that. In 2000, he started producing and directing some, not exclusively, but in 2000 he started including gay porn for Evil Angel Video Company. So I would like to point out, don't get me wrong, I love Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great starting source for a lot of things. However, and I realize Wikipedia does not write these entries. This entry in Wikipedia made the point not once but twice that, nudge, nudge, he says he's straight, but look, he produces and directs gay porn. So they seem
so he knows there's a market in it, and
I'm like, but here's where I took it. By this logic, we should suspect that Ron Howard is an astronaut, a mermaid, an alien, a baseball player, a hillbilly, and a firefighter, just to name a few.
Indeed.
So I'm like, yes, he seemed to develop a good business sense as he went through this. So
I've seen that one recently. Like, I think I've seen it and called it out on some stories I've done too, that it's sometimes somebody is so intent on they're hiding this, and it's like, maybe they are. Like, what do you want to get out of outing them on it?
So I'm like, so he did not star in gay porn, but he produced it and directed it. Okay.
Saw there was money in it.
If he
did it.
If he says he's straight, who might argue with him? I don't care.
Right. In a perfect world, I would like for everybody to be able to say their honest truth about everything, right? And it'd be okay, unless you're harming people. But otherwise, who the fuck cares? Unless unless they want you to know something about them.
Nacho also had some success in mainstream TV and movies in Spain. So he was able to cross over, which is something, maybe it's a trope, but some porn stars would like to be in mainstream media and don't make the crossover, but he seemed to. In May of 2005, Nacho announced his retirement from the world of porn. He married a model, Francesca James, and they moved into a mansion. This I thought was kind of cool. He bought a mansion that had belonged to his family before that big stock market crash where they lost everything. So they went back to where his family had come from and bought this house, retired from porn. He's going to raise a family. And he did. He had like 3 or 4 kids with different people. But they separated a few weeks later and he returned to work a few months later. So he did retire from porn, but then went back.
Sometimes it's hard to give up the money.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I would imagine so. So his first major brush with the law came in October of 2012. He and his sister Maria, and I'm not going to read out her whole name, just going to say her sister Maria, they were arrested in Barcelona on charges of tax evasion and money laundering connected to Chinese organized crime.
Huh.
Yeah, that does not say... I don't think those are like friendly folk. No. So the police raided over 100 businesses and Nacho and Maria were detained. So while law enforcement... This just threw me. Law enforcement wanted to keep him in custody during the entire investigation. They're like, we suspect him. We've got some kind of evidence. But 3 days after the raid, he was released without bail. Why? He was deemed not a flight risk because he had just signed a contract to star in a reality show over the next 3 months. His TV contract got him out of sitting in jail.
Good to know.
So, the other thing you need to know, this kills me, Nacho is an entrepreneur. He sold dildos modeled after his own member, as well as candles similarly molded. They measure almost 10 inches. they had the centimeters. I can't remember what it was. Because I was like, nah, that's an American
Now
audience.
I would like to know where Holmes measures in comparison to that.
I think Holmes is
Bigger?
Anyway, but I don't know that. I have nothing to base that on, except I believe I've seen a picture at one point, and that thing was just, it looked like a
trunk.
dead mammal hanging between his legs.
That's sexy, to be sure.
I never saw a video or anything where it was erect.
Oh.
So it was always, but even limp, it looked like it could hurt you. So it looked like a sleeping python. And Amy has just spit whatever she was drinking onto her computer screen. Oh. You're welcome. From the pictures. Okay, so there's a picture where he's wearing like not heavy duty, but like the lightweight sweatpants. I don't think these...
Were they gray? Because that's a whole thing. That's a thing.
They were, and I don't think that the dildos are exaggerating.
I mean, he did porn. He's not going to fake it because there's a lot of evidence, right?
Yes.
I mean,
I'm not going to post a photo of the dildo.
What about a candle?
No. I will say it is
We've been in enough trouble.
The two of them are very realistic looking, and I will say they look very veiny.
There.
It was like, why would you want a candle of that?
I'm trying to ponder that, and I'm like, I guess that like I would think it was funny to have like a candle of that, but
he also marketed a cologne, G for Men by Nacho Vidal, which is apparently available in a regular bottle or a penis-shaped bottle.
Why would you get the regular bottle? I don't think that's lame. Live it up, folks. Get the penis-shaped bottle.
When I first saw the ad, it was for it was like you'd see in a magazine. It's the ad, and it's this picture in the bottle of cologne. And then it was, I'm scrolling through, and then I come across the dildo-shaped bottle, and I went, oh my God. We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet, if you can believe it. So,
we haven't peaked yet.
We have not.
Crescendoed.
Oh, God. So, here it comes, though. We are 12-year-old boys.
And we're sober in this one. We were drunk in the last... We weren't drunk. We were tipsy in the last one.
Nacho was arrested again in 2020. But, to talk about that, the real mayhem at the heart of the story, we have to go back a year to July of 2019, when fashion photographer Jose Luis Abad died in Nacho's home, and Nacho was arrested for manslaughter. Nacho was acting as a shaman for an Amazonian ritual using venom from the Colorado River toad, which you may know as the toad formerly known as the Sonoran Desert toad.
And they changed that.
It did. It changed names. I don't know why. Because that was not the rabbit hole I was interested in. Anyway, it exudes or excretes toxins with psychoactive properties.
Oh, it's one of those frogs you're not supposed to lick. And they have to tell people don't lick this frog.
In 2016, Nacho had posted a video talking about the beneficial effects of using the toad's venom. He said, "My body turned into light. The light formed part of the ground, the sky, the plants, nature, the universe. I was the universe. I was everything."
Buddy, just do some ayahuasca.
I'm like, yeah, he's tripping balls. So, okay. So, what happened was, Nacho cooked the venom and encouraged Jose to inhale the fumes. So this was not just for shits and giggles. It was not to get high. The goal was to trigger neurotransmitters to replicate feelings of happiness because Nacho was trying to help his friend get off cocaine.
Oh, I see.
So that's there must be some whole ritual involved. It's not just licking the toad. You have to cook the venom.
It's not just licking
the toad. You have to cook the venom and inhale the vapor.
Okay.
Who knew? So
how is one collecting? Like, does it just sweat and you collect it in a little?
It said, the one article said it exudes venom, and I was like,
so are they boiling the frog? I'm picturing some people running around the desert. Apparently, the part of the desert that has the Colorado River through it. I don't know.
I'm just picturing,
and they're just holding little vials as it hops around, and beads of sweat, toxic sweat come off of it. Probably not.
See, I'm picturing them picking up a toad and squeezing it.
That's terrible, though.
Right?
I was trying to find a non-violent way to
I don't
extract
think you can get it without damaging the toad. The toad, not the frog. So anyway, the judge in the case was not pursuing Nacho for killing his friend, but rather for failing to take proper precautions in case something went wrong. And for not controlling the substance. So, what if he inhales too much? There would well, he was acting as a shaman for a religion that was not his.
Yeah. The people who legitimately do that shit
have...
Because there's something called San Pedro or something that's also kind of a hallucinogenic experience. They don't like to call it a drug, right? But again, you go to somebody who knows what they're doing and who's had this passed down to them through the generations.
Exactly.
Right?
There's experience. Yeah. So it was suggested. So I had one article that suggested that there might have been a delay in calling for help, whatever the Spanish equivalent of 911 is. Mm-hmm. But another article, it was unsettling to read, to say the least. They were filming this while they did it. So there's video of the whole experience, and it was when he started, as soon as he started turning blue, Nacho was like, somebody call for help. So it doesn't seem to me like that was really, it wasn't that they delayed in calling, it just, they didn't have control of the situation. Mm-hmm. I have to interject at this point. So I was finishing this one up this morning. I was starting and finishing. But this came from my True Crime A Day calendar. So I had left the page of the calendar sitting on the side table at home. So I messaged Joe and said, hey, can you do me a favor? And he's like, sure, what do you need? And I said, go upstairs. And I told him what the table, and I said, there's a page from my calendar. Would you take a picture and send it to me? So he did it. He goes, this was the most interesting favor I think I've ever done. Because it's like, porn star and psychedelic toad. That was the headline. In early 2019, actually before this all happened with his friend, it was like February, I think. In early 2019, a Spanish newspaper announced that Nacho was HIV positive. So shortly thereafter, and I can't tell you for certain that he was or not, but shortly thereafter he released a 12-minute video explaining that he did not have HIV, he was not HIV positive, that after a long and exhaustive process, and that part is, this diagnosis does take a long time, he actually had reactive arthritis.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shit, that sounds bad.
It's a chronic inflammatory syndrome often triggered by a prior treatable infection that may have resolved.
Gotcha.
However, Nacho blamed repeated bouts of chlamydia and gonorrhea that he suffered while he was working in the porn industry.
I would assume then it was STIs that had and then gone away.
Yep. So, the last I was able to find, he was obviously unable to work and is filing for disability. I'm trying to imagine that claim. Of course, I don't know the Spanish system at all, but filing, I'm unable to work in the porn, in the adult entertainment industry any longer because I had
reactive.
I had so many sexually transmitted diseases that I now have reactive arthritis and cannot work.
Yeah. Hopefully it's easier there than it is here, because I tell you what, you prove to them that you're dying and they turn you down here.
I'm like, but I can imagine, I like to imagine, the person who that claim comes across their desk and they read it and they're like, they get home that night and go, Martha, you're not going to believe what came across my desk today. Martha. So my sources were my lovely True Crime A Day calendar, Wikipedia, and then the Daily Mail, and an article I got from Metrosource.com called Sex Toy Story.
Nice.
The Rise and Fall of Nacho Vidal.
Oh, that's lyrical.
Isn't it just?
Good job.
So that's sex, drugs, and
toads.
Toads. I wanted it to be. It's a lot of sex. So,
by definition,
1,500 at least. Ew.
It makes me feel many things, but one of the big one is just tired.
Perhaps a little chafed.
That too. One hopes that the fluffers do their job and that there's readily available lubes and whatnot so that you don't have to have that much chafing. Woo, we don't need to go down that path.
You're welcome.
Of a discussion.
You're welcome, listeners. Everybody's going to be like...
You guys don't know how hard we have to work to have filters and know what...
Yeah, because we do employ our filters.
Because here's the kick. I don't get embarrassed. And so I always have to be cognizant of what will embarrass or make other people uncomfortable. But if it doesn't make you uncomfortable, it doesn't embarrass you, that's hard. That's studying the humans around you. And humans are vast and different species. I can only do so much in my study of the human race, okay? That's what I'm saying.
I'm like,
where are you going?
I was like, does she know where this thought is going?
Wander the fuck on.
Or is it a runaway train?
I knew where it was going. Okay. So I'm doing the mysterious death of Bugsy Siegel, because how could I not?
That's true.
In Vegas. How could I not? Also, if you remember, I love Wild West, and honestly, the 20s gangster era was second to that for me. So I always loved hearing about those stories. But, okay. Benjamin Siegel, his name was not Bugsy. In case anybody was confused about that, was born February 27th, 1906 in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were Ashkenazi Jewish, and they had immigrated from Austria-Hungary. It's hyphenated, Austria-Hungary at that time.
Oh.
He was the second of 5 kids, and the family was very poor, so he quit attending school and joined a gang at a young age.
That's because the porn industry hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah, I'll post pictures of him. You can decide about that, I suppose.
I don't know. Do we have any wax casts of his members?
I don't believe the mafia was into that. We could check. The Flamingo is right down the way. Actually, I don't know where the Flamingo is according to where we are.
It's next door.
Oh, groovy. Field trip. Okay. He graduated from theft to a protection racket. And so for this protection racket, and I don't have exact ages for this because this kid got into everything, okay? But fairly youngish age, he's walking up to, with his partner in crime, the people who had carts there in New York.
Oh, yeah,
so
push carts, the vegetable carts.
And stuff like that. And he was like, pay me $1 if you want your cart to stay safe, otherwise it burns.
Oh my God.
And so they're paying him $1. So he has a protection racket like we see in these movies of gangs doing, right? And this is kids, but they're like, we'll torch it. If you don't pay us $1, pay us $1, you're protected.
Wow.
Until we come around again, right? So they had this going. And then he graduated to rape, murder, armed robbery, and yada, 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 we'll say. Everything. Other kids nicknamed him Bugsy because he was fucking crazy. They were all scared of him. He was crazy, so they called him Bugsy, but his actual friends called him Ben. And never, from here on out, shall I call him Ben, because he was a rapist and he doesn't deserve it.
No.
Bugsy it is, bitch. Anyway.
It's Bugsy,
It's
bitch.
Bugsy, bitch. He eventually met Meyer Lansky, who was considered highly intelligent. Here's my thing always. Bugsy Siegel gets all the attention. Meyer Lansky was a criminal genius. He was in general probably a genius. But Bugsy was the crazy one. He was the guy who pulled the triggers, and therefore he was the one who got famous. But Meyer Lansky did quite well for himself. Anyway, highly intelligent. So, sadly, he used that intelligence for crime, and he formed a mob. In Brooklyn, there were already Italian and Irish mobs, right? But these guys were all Jewish, and Lansky felt that to protect themselves, they needed to have then this Jewish mob as well, so that they would have that protection. I mean, if you go back in gangs and mobs and stuff like that, it comes down to stuff like staying safe and staying viable and staying alive and finding ways to make money, and it's not great, and I'm not justifying it, but it's not usually for fun.
No, you can see how it evolved.
Yes. So he thought it was time to join forces. They at first called themselves the Bugs and Meyer Mob, so he couldn't have been that against the nickname. But anyway, he hated it as an adult. But in time, they formed what people have now heard of, Murder, Inc. It's succinct, is it not?
Yeah.
They started out in bootlegging, then started handling hits for other bootleggers along the East Coast. So they were, Murder, Inc. That's what they were doing. They were murdering folks for people. They especially operated in New York and New Jersey, which, duh. They escalated stealing from rival gangs and eventually killing off or tearing apart those gangs. They were so successful that Siegel owned a Tudor home and an apartment at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel at a fairly young age. In addition to bootlegging, Siegel had been in the drug trade. Siegel was fearless, had no issue letting anyone know how well he was doing. He was known to showboat and dress nicely and show off his riches and all of that stuff. His fellow mafia members also said he was fast to pull the trigger. They said if they were in one of them was quoted, and he said if we were in a situation, if shit went bad, while we were all still trying to figure it out, he was already pulling the trigger. In 1929, at a major conference in Atlantic City, Siegel and Lansky joined forces with the Italians in a bid to strengthen the mafia. Now, they had issues with them when they were coming up in Brooklyn. There were fights amongst them, but they finally joined forces. And this conference in Atlantic City was a huge deal. And it was, how do we get the mafia, how do we spread this and get it stronger and make sure that nobody can take us down and make sure that we stop having all these wars. So, Siegel and Lansky would be instrumental in taking out several major mafia leaders to end what was called, not going to say this right, Castellammarese War. A war fought to determine who would lead the Italian mafia in America, and putting Lucky Luciano at the top of the pyramid in 1931. Together, Lansky and Luciano created something called the National Crime Syndicate. The Wikipedia description of this, because it was just easier, was, quote, an organization of crime families that brought power to the underworld, end quote. The NCS, heretofore, was used to organize the mafia, split it into territories, and keep mafia members from warring with each other. So very organized crime at this point, right?
It was like a union almost.
Oh, that's going to come into play later. It was around this time that Murder, Inc. was formed. So Murder, Inc. was basically a group for hitmen, and they took care of the mob's kills. Pretty simple. Siegel and Lansky had made such a name for themselves and killed so many people, although I do not know how many people Lansky actually killed versus pointed and said, Bugsy, sick 'em. Though it seems, that rivals now attempted hits on them. In one of these hits, the brothers of a man Siegel and Lansky had turned in for tax evasion used a bomb to attack him in his Waldorf apartment. It was otherwise, you couldn't get into it, so they went through a wall with a bomb. They died for their efforts, not because of the bomb.
Oh.
Hunted down by Siegel, who then killed their brother, who was writing a book that had a chapter that mentioned Murder, Inc. To do this and get away with it, Siegel checked himself into a hospital and then snuck out that night to commit the murder and snuck back in so he had an alibi. I feel like he didn't come up with that himself, but who knows? Lansky. This last Lansky. This last crime put extra heat on Siegel, and the mob decided to send him to California to take over the mafia from the man in charge there. Siegel's job was to put together gambling rackets. There was some legal gambling at the time, which Siegel was able to use as a cover, but their syndicate was running underground gambling rings and some offshore things, which brought in the real money. This money funded drug trafficking with LA close to Mexico for direct imports. So they were really, it was a smart choice for the mafia, I guess. Good job. Siegel became a problem, and the syndicate put a man named Jack Dragna, who had originally been running things before Siegel, got there back in charge. So, of course, Siegel was like, the hell you did what? So, now he's pissed. But he had also become quite powerful and connected on his own, including with politicians, businessmen, and a laundry list of other people that I just didn't feel like listing them out. He had solidified a prostitution ring and had his own casinos. But it wasn't just politicians he rubbed elbows with. There's a reason Bugsy Siegel is the name more familiar to people than Meyer Lansky, even though Meyer Lansky built an empire, right? Bugsy liked to hang out with Hollywood celebrities, such as Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, Cary Grant, and a young and up-and-coming Frank Sinatra.
I knew his name was going to come in.
Fascinatingly, he traveled to Italy with a woman he was dating and met Benito Mussolini, Hermann Göring, and Joseph, is it Goebbels? Goebbels?
I think it's Goebbels.
I'd like to call him just Goebbels, because fuck him. He hated the two Nazis and offered to kill them, actually, but was talked out of it. He was like, fuck these guys. And they were like, no,
I wonder what would have happened.
Mm-hmm. So he actually got involved. He tried to sell guns to Mussolini, and then he had some sort of bomb that he was going to sell him, and it didn't go off when it was supposed to, when he was showing him. And so Mussolini made him give his money back. Using his connections and people's fear of him, it was well known Bugsy was crazy and violent. He extorted movie companies and celebrities, and he took over several of their unions. And then he would use those to get payoffs, because he would make the union strike just because he felt like it, until the movie companies paid up. As an example of someone trying to prosecute Siegel and failing, because everybody knew that Siegel was this guy, nobody could prove that Siegel was this guy.
Right.
The only thing he got actually convicted of was some sort of horse racing in Florida at some point, or something, like betting on, just a little piddly thing. But he was brought up on charges of killing a man named Harry Big Greenie, in quotes, Greenberg, in 1939, which made it all the way to court. However, he was given special privileges in prison. Witnesses against him were murdered. And he was ultimately acquitted due to lack of evidence. Like, he was all, I don't like prison food, so they would go out and get him food for his meals and stuff. He was very well treated. This was the first he was called Bugsy in the newspapers. This is the first that 1939 was the first reference, and he absolutely hated it. Now, he was publicly seen as a crazy and violent murderer, rather than it just being whispered about, and that was problematic for Murder, Inc. and the Syndicate, and yada yada. In 1946, Siegel used threats of death to take over the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, as he was already leading some syndicate work on the Boulder Dam and gambling exploits. Siegel thought he could use the hotel to finally go straight, seeing the massive income possibilities in the city, because it was just being built then,
started
in the middle of a desert. Due to post-war shortages, the work on the hotel went from costing the $1 million he'd gotten approved through the syndicate to over $6 million, which would be the equivalent of $62 million today. And that is a huge, you get approved for $1 million, and it goes up to $6 million. That's massive. He had also started actively bucking the syndicate, refusing to report on the finances of his California controls. He premiered the Flamingo Sands Hotel. So basically it had like a restaurant and gambling,
Casino.
but they did not have the hotel ready yet. In December 1946, and had to shut down the gambling operation there in January 1947 because not having hotel rooms to offer people coming all the way out to the desert to gamble meant people weren't coming. His celebrity friends also let him down, with very few of them supporting the opening. But also there was a freak rainstorm when he opened it. Like opening weekend or whatever, they got one of their freak rainstorms. I've been here for one of those. It's insane. Everything floods. And that's with infrastructure in place, right? So, Lansky came out to help after the initial shutdown, and with Lansky's help, they had it back up and running and in the black by March. Wow. It brought in $10 million in 4 weeks.
Wow.
Because he was smart. He may have been a criminal, but he was smart. This was too little too late, and on June 20th, 1947 at 10:45 p.m., 41-year-old Siegel was back home in Beverly Hills at his girlfriend Virginia Hill's house, hanging out with a friend in the living room at the front of the house. He was sitting there reading the paper on a sofa with his back to the window, which I can't help but think, wouldn't you be wary of that if you're a killer and you've killed
I
a bunch
would
of
think
people?
so, but
I'm wary of that, and I am not a killer, and have nobody probably who wants to come do that, but I am not comfortable at the dark of night sitting in front of a window fully exposed to people outside. I've never liked it. Anyway, someone gunned him down through the window with a .30 caliber military M1 carbine.
Ooh.
Several bullets went into his head and lungs, and one eyeball was said to have been sent across the room into the dining room from the bullet that came in from behind. His friend Alan Smiley, though sitting next to him, was able to throw himself on the floor when the gunshots started, and only had damage to his jacket. Siegel's cause of death was cerebral hemorrhage due to gunshot wounds to the head. The question was, who had done it? There were those who said the mob had put out a contract on Siegel, which Lansky had agreed to, but not happily. There had been some big meeting. Siegel had long been an issue, but now he had cost them millions of dollars in Vegas. He'd drawn all kinds of attention. Mm-hmm. So, it was theorized that the gunmen were either John Frankie Carbo or Frankie Carranzo, thought to be the ones who would have the skill to pull it off. This is Bugsy Siegel. Nobody wanted to go toe-to-toe with him. There are those who maintain that not only would Lansky not have allowed a hit on Siegel, but Luciano would not have defied his partner Lansky and the man running things in the U.S. because Luciano had to flee to Sicily. If they wouldn't allow it, there was no way it was a mob-sanctioned hit. They were in charge. Another reason it was thought to be by someone outside the mob was the fact that the mob didn't kill people from outside a house like that. They were always up close. Mm-hmm. Hits are up close. Because a remote hit was thought too high a risk to not kill the person they were aiming for. Their intent, and they were pretty good at it, was to take out whoever they were trying to take out. So they either entered the building to kill or got the person to come outside somehow. And actually their favorite method of a single person hit was to wait in the back of a car, pull the trigger with the muzzle directly behind her against the person's head when they got in. We see it in movies. It was actually how they like to do it, because I imagine cars didn't have locks yet then. I don't know.
I have no idea.
So you could just be in there chilling. That's why. What was it I watched the other day? And I said, people, if you get out to your car and it's supposed to be empty and it's fogged up from the inside, don't get in your fucking car. I don't remember what I watched, but I was like, come on.
I don't remember, but yes, I remember that.
It's probably a Halloweener. Yeah, because I watched a lot of those. I watched like all the Halloweens, all the Child's Plays, all the Nightmares. Okay, so interestingly, considering the weapon was military style, Virginia Hill had a brother in the Marines, and it was thought he had committed the killing because Bugsy was known to beat her and leave marks.
Oh.
There had been a sighting of Virginia arguing with her brother outside the Flamingo around December 1946, about 2 weeks before the hotel opened. Her brother had declared loudly he was going to kill Siegel. In fact, a man had walked up and said, "Don't say that around here. You need to watch what you're saying." Virginia had, in fact, moved to Europe before the killing occurred. In 2014, the son of Mo Sedway, who was Bugsy's partner, stated that his father on his deathbed had said his mom, B, had gone to her lover, Matthew Moose Panza, after hearing that Siegel intended to kill Sedway. It was not a secret that she and Panza were in a relationship, and she told her husband Panza would take care of it. It was the weirdest love triangle ever. Like, there's so many things in this story that we could go into depth on. I mean, especially the rackets that they had going. It's very complicated. So I've done my best to be like, here's what is applicable. Oddly, Panza and Sedway were good friends, despite both still being in a relationship with B. Panza got the gun from a friend who had returned from the war and learned to use it in the desert before taking out Siegel. Police have stated that the case is still open. They don't know who did it. Whoever did it, and for whatever reason, the mob was now done with their problem child, and they quickly handed his reins over to others. So there is a plaque memorializing him back home in the, gonna butcher it, Bialystoker Synagogue. And there's a plaque at the Flamingo as well. So if we get a chance, maybe we'll find this plaque and get a picture and post it. But it's near the pool, so I don't know how accessible it is. If it's near a pool, if we'd have to, I don't know. But we'll check it out.
We can ask.
Yes. And then if it works, then you guys will find out. So, yeah, there's a part of me that even though they're terrible people and criminals, it doesn't want it to be Meyer Lansky. Because they were best friends from youth.
Years.
Childhood.
Wow.
But again, he was a problem, right? And I'm sure there's a movie where Warren Beatty has played Bugsy Siegel, and I think Annette Bening was Virginia Hill. Mm-hmm. And then there's also Mobsters. I think that one's just called Bugsy. Mobsters has what's his name? So Richard Grieco plays Bugsy.
Oh.
I know that much. And Patrick Dempsey plays Meyer Lansky. And
really?
Christian Slater plays Lucky Luciano.
Wow.
Yes. Sources. So, Wikipedia, Who Killed Benjamin Bugsy Siegel by Larry Henry on the Mob Museum website, which, by the way, the Mob Museum is here, too.
Yes.
Bugsy Siegel's 1947 murder has it finally been solved by Johnny Dodd and People. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I don't want it to have been the best friend.
So we could go to the mob.
Killed.
We could, while we're in Vegas, we could go to the Mob Museum.
It's supposed to be interesting.
But we could also go to the Horror Museum.
And see, now which... Well, I would be interested in either.
However,
I
will point out that there's supposed to be a speakeasy under the Mob Museum.
I mean, we could try to do both. There's so much to do here, and that's the thing.
That's true. There is a lot to do here. There are a lot of things on display. There are a ton of shows.
Yeah, the body one is here that I've always wanted to see, so...
I'm sorry you didn't get to see that when it was in Denver.
I did not. Yeah, I knew it was there, and it was one that I couldn't make happen.
We took the girls, because when we're walking in, I think it was Lucy says, "Are those real live dead people?" Of course, and in her clear child's voice, it rings in the room. And I was like, "Yep." And the couple ahead of us just cracked up.
Was it at the Museum of Nature and Science?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. They have one there, I think.
Oh, they might. But yeah, this was the traveling exhibit.
Yeah.
And it was...
And I think that one's in this hotel. But I don't know where.
I don't know where either.
But there's a sign. I was like, where else can it be? We're taking up the whole convention center.
Well, and then there's that Cabinet of Curiosities bar I told you about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, except the drinks are horrifically expensive.
Certain.
Well,
the one we
had
today, a margarita for $15 and a $25 whatever we each got.
That had a lot of liquor in it.
She did us right.
Yep. I was like, how many of those
I
are you
like
putting
her.
in there?
I got
like,
food
"Hey,
from
you
her
came
yesterday.
back."
Yeah. And why do I color my hair? That's why. Because if I were just a brunette going back there, nobody would know who I was.
And plus, we didn't just walk up and go, "Give me a whatever." We actually chatted with her and engaged with her. Because last night when we were on our way back and you stopped to get the tacos, there was a woman sitting on the ground and security was there and they like brought up a wheelchair, but then they took that back.
Well, when I was up there buying the food, did you hear this? The two women behind that were working back there were like, I know she's hurting because she went straight down on her face.
Yes.
But I looked at her face and there was no blood.
There was no, her knees were, or her shins were a little scraped up. Yeah, so this woman is sitting there crying on the phone. And she had on a very light summer dress.
Yeah.
And I was like...
As we're freezing and sitting under the heaters.
Yeah, and it was all kind of twisted. And I'm like, you might want to pull that down to cover your drawers. But what do I know?
Your drawers?
It's drawers. And so she's on the phone and she's like holding up her hand to stop the security. And she's like, I have to call my husband. I'm thinking to myself, is he here? Because there was nobody with her. She was all by herself. And so she's talking on the phone for quite a while. And then she just leans up and hands her phone to the security guard. He talks to, I'm assuming, the husband, then hands the phone back to her. They got her up and got her in a chair.
Yes. And then eventually, though, she stood up and brought her stuff over to the table. It was happening the entire time. We were waiting for the food. I ate my Ben & Jerry's ice cream that I had earned.
Yes.
And they probably see everything.
I was like, you guys must have seen absolutely everything. Well, that woman, I can't believe, I don't even know how it came up tonight, but she said she works 3 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Yes.
And I was just like, I would be dead.
This cube outside with no heater. And I imagine no air conditioning in the summer. And they're back there making food. So these are like weird little, it's almost like a miniature strip mall directly outside Bally's.
Yeah, it's just...
I don't understand it to describe it. It's just like each is a cube.
Yeah, and we haven't even been to the cube, to the crate, the shipping container mall.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is from here. I'm like, you see all the stuff that's in Vegas and you think you get it, and then you get here and go,
there's so much.
What the fuck? And then there's the Neon Museum with the old neon sign. I would love to see that. That's not even on my list for this trip.
No, it can't even register compared to some of the other stuff. No. There used to be an M&M place here, and you could go get the personally done M&Ms, but now you can do that online. That wasn't available when we came here before. And you could do the tour and stuff like that, if I remember right.
Huh.
Yeah, I think we skipped it, so I didn't have all the details.
Could you print anything you wanted on the M&Ms?
I think so.
Could you print rude things on the M&Ms?
Absolutely. Oh. If you pay them, they will print whatever you want on there, I'm sure.
Once we are off the air,
You have some ideas?
I have something to tell you. It'll make you laugh.
I have to say that Vegas is really good for people watching. And we passed a fascinating shop when we were looking for lunch today that I wanted to, like in the Paris area, I guess, that had the goofiest clothes. And I saw something that was like mirrored tiles. And it looked like a little 60s, the little jumpsuit thingy.
I thought you were going to say the ice cream place.
No, that looked good too. They had a very decorative ice cream place.
The ice cream is almost sculpted.
I'm like, I can't have that flavor because nobody else has dented that, and I can't damage that flavor right there. But, all right. Thanks for listening.
We will be back to talk
I promise something darker coming up.
I don't. But
I haven't delivered the darker shit lately.
I don't know where I'm going to come up with something stranger than a porn star with a
licking toad,
psychedelic toad, but I'll see what I can find. I'll see what I can do.
All right. Don't forget that you can check us out at...
That's right.
buymeabook.com/mmmayhem and support us in a variety of ways and paying for our overhead. And either way, thank you for listening.
Yes, we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back next week with more shenanigans.